Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life, fly fishing. And today let's talk about a bit of a complex subject that can have quite an impact on the quality of our spey casting. And it's something called casting weight. And what that really deals with is the line that's actually being used in a spey cast to load the rod during the forward stroke. And it is not all of the line as it is in overhead casting. When we make an overhead cast, we send all the line behind us, and as we move the rod forward to make the forward stroke, we're moving all of the line. And when we move all of the line, then all of the line is available to load the rod. And the key thing about casting weight is line that is not moving is not loading the rod. So your anchor, a lot of people think the anchor loads the rod. No, the anchor prevents premature unloading of the rod. Because when we make a spey cast, the force of the motion tries to turn the cast into an overhead cast. In other words, blow the anchor, kick the anchor back. And the rod will unload at that point. So the anchor merely prevents unloading of the rod. All the line that's in the bottom of the D-loop that's not moving is not loading the rod. That is a key component of understanding casting weight. If the line is not moving, it is not loading the rod. Only line that is moving is loading the rod. And if you remember any of your high school physics of force equals mass times acceleration, if there's zero acceleration, there's zero force. So that's what that's about. So casting weight is the line in the top of the D-loop that's moving. And of course, the bottom of the D-loop eventually does get moving as the line rolls out and the bottom of the D-loop is lifted off the water. But until that point, it's not doing anything. And often with longer lines, the casting motion of our forward stroke has already ended before all that gets picked up if the D-loop is big enough. So what's the impact on that for our casting? First off, I would say to always have that kind of idea in the back of your head that the line in the top of the D-loop is working to load the rod. Because if you don't keep that in mind, you can make some decisions about your D-loops which will cause you some problems. And also allows you to do some situational casting when you're very close to the bank, under a tree. You'll understand what that compromise that you're doing is going to have, the impact it's going to have on your forward cast and the quality of that forward cast. So the more weight we can put in the top of the D-loop and the less weight we can put in the bottom of the D-loop, the better cast we'll have. And that's basically how it works. It's the reason why Skagit heads are so heavy in relationship to Scandi heads. If you looked at the casting weight of a Skagit head and a casting weight of the Scandi head, in other words, the amount that's in the top of the D-loop, guess what? They're about the same. It's because a Skagit head has a lot of weight in the bottom of the D-loop where the sink tip and the forward part of the head is, and that's not that productive. It's not really productive until we start the rollout. So if you're casting and you have a small D-loop or a D-loop that's stretched out because you've set your anchor too far away, or you're trying to cut the D-loop off because you've got a bank behind you, you've reduced the amount of line that's in the top of the D-loop. You've reduced the casting weight. And as a consequence, you're not going to get the distance that you would be hoping for. And that awareness helps us to produce better D-loops. When you think in terms of trying to maximize the amount of line in the top of the D-loop, when you get that as a concept in your head, it changes your thinking about D-loops, and it also will improve the D-loop and the forward cast. You'll end up with more line weight available for you to use to make the forward stroke. The other benefit is we get to use less power. We don't have to muscle it as much. So if you are working with a really good D-loop, you can take it easy and make a nice easy stroke because you've got all that weight available. It's when that weight's not available that you see people try to muscle it. They throw a little tiny D-loop and then they got to crank on it because they don't have much mass there, so they have to substitute acceleration. And also that thinking helps in situational casting where you're tight to the bank, you can't throw much of a D-loop, you've got to leave your anchor way out in front of you. You know you're going to have to supply some more acceleration to get it to go. You're aware that you have to do this because you don't have the mass. So if we keep these two components in our head, the fact that we need a certain amount of force to load the rod so we can make a cast, so we give up mass in the top of the D-loop, we've got to supply it with our muscle. We have to accelerate faster. So when you're out there and you're casting and you're not getting good forward cast and you're feeling that you're muscling it, like I said in an earlier cast, turn your head. Take a look at your D-loop. If you've got a little tiny D-loop and your anchor is way over there or way over there, there's your reason. Compact it. Compress that D-loop. Get that anchor as close as possible for you and still be safe, obviously. You don't want to hook yourself. But, get that anchor reasonably close. Compress that D-loop. Expand the amount of line in the top of the D-loop. It's going to make a huge difference in the quality of your casts. So keep casting weight in mind when you're out on the river. It will help you visualize what's going on, and it also help you deal with awkward casting situations. So give it a try. Cheers.